Hi everybody and welcome to Inspire My Golf. I'm Tom Denby. Now today we're going to review the new Taylormade SIM irons. They've got two different heads in this. We've got the SIM MAX and the SIM MAX OS. So I'm going to hit both, give you an understanding of the numbers on Trackman, but also give you my honest opinion on who they're targeted at and exactly what the technology is supposed to do and if it works. So, what exactly are Taylormade saying about these irons? So it's quite an interesting concept. They're definitely designing it more towards distance and forgiveness. So these are not a player's iron at all. They are what you probably call their general run-of-the-mill selling product for the year in terms of the most amount of product they're going to sell. So targeted at handicapped golfers. So we've definitely got two different heads here. Now, interestingly, we've got a new concept in terms of the bridging performance that they've put into this. So we've got explosive distance, enhanced feel and sweet sound. What more could you ask for? A more refined speed bridge puts SIM and SIM MAX OS a step above its predecessors. We've got good vibration, so we've got an echo dampening system that expands across the entire face from heel to toe, giving you a better feel at impact without sacrificing performance. So we've got each iron uniquely designed for accuracy, so they've engineered progressive inverted cone technology, which they've had for a while to be fair, to optimize accuracy in each iron in the set. They've got a thin to win face, so with 17% thinner in the face to the previous class, the SIM MAX gives you ball speed and forgiveness all the way across the face. And then we've got proven distance and power, so the through slot, speed slot technology, the pocket that they've had for a while. Completely disconnects the lower portion of the face from the sole of the iron and allows for a free floating face. When combined with a speed bridge, the face maintains stability whilst delivering maximum ball speed. So basically what they're saying is that they're giving you maximum performance across the whole of the face. So they're trying to provide something that's very forgiving but also very, very consistent on off-centre hits. So that'll be very, very interesting to see on Trackman, just to see the numbers that we get out of it. But actually the technology is there. In terms of the OS head, they've got an oversized head, slightly bigger on the sole plate, slightly bigger in the head to make it a little bit easier to hit, for those off-centre strikes, and also the shots that you get on the low points poor. But let's have a look on Trackman. Let's give them a good test and let's just see the difference in terms of the performance between both heads and also my initial thoughts. So what do they actually look like before I hit them? Now, what's my first opinion of them? Now, the SIM MAX head actually looks like a very old version of a Nike slingshot iron. It's not quite as wide on the bottom, but it looks a bit like that in the back of it. So it's not necessarily the most appealing golf club you would look at from a shelf appeal, but it does look like it's loaded full of technology. I do like the brushed finish on the bottom of both the irons. I quite like that idea, because any shiny chrome I think is a bit outdated now, a little bit 80s, 90s. So I like that sort of finish. It will last a bit longer also in terms of how it looks. Behind the ball, it's quite clunky and square, which is fine because that's the type of person it's designed at. So initial first thoughts of what they look like, it's okay. It's a bit like the driver. It doesn't kind of explode at me in terms of the asset. It's been amazing, but let's see how they perform. So what's my first initial thoughts after hitting these? So I actually quite like them in terms of how easy they are to hit. They are very, very similar to those Nike slingshot irons way back when. So in terms of how they look, they're a little bit square from behind the ball, but also how they sound and perform. So they are springing off the face. That Nike slingshot iron was a great iron, and this is likewise really. It's flying off the face. It's good on off-centre hits. So it's doing exactly what they said. It's not targeting me, but in terms of what they're trying to do with the golf club, I get it. It's definitely a forgiving golf club. Off-centre hits good. From how it looks behind the ball, it's okay. It's not an especially good-looking iron, but it's not bad at all. But it does come off it very, very well. It really flies off it, and it's got that same clicky sound that is very typical of golf clubs these days, and that really kind of promotes confidence that you're getting a lot of power out of it, but also a lot of forgiveness out of it. So all in all, I'm actually quite enjoying hitting it. And when you crush it like that, it definitely goes a long way. So the numbers are really telling us that and giving us some really good data and feedback on there in terms of the actual carry that we're getting out of it. So all in all, the SIM MAX, I'm definitely enjoying that. It's good. So now let's have a hit the SIM MAX OS and just see if there's a difference in my opinion. Now, in terms of how it looks behind the ball, yes, there is a difference. It is slightly bigger, that's for sure. But it's not noticeably bigger in terms of, it doesn't scream out it being a lot bigger, but it is slightly bigger. And it is that little bit easier to hit. Now, interestingly, with the OS head, it doesn't actually sound as clicky. So it sounds a little bit more solid, which is surprised me really. I did think it would sound a bit more clicky. So that one I've caught a little bit thin, but it's still gone and it's still exploded off it, which shows that the technology they're trying to put into this head's definitely working, so the off-center hits aren't quite as bad as you would expect from a bladed iron, as an example. But from a modern tech iron, this is definitely doing what they're trying to do. So that I've hit really well. We've got quite a lot of power out of that actually, which is great. So in comparison to the two, I wouldn't say there's a huge difference in the performance of them, but it's just that little bit easier to hit. So I think more importantly, this is going to generally, for a high handicap, promote a little bit more confidence, so you've got a little bit more help there. But in terms of screaming the difference between the two, there's not a huge amount of difference, but I understand what the differences are, and this is definitely targeted at that higher handicap golfer. So let's have a look at the Trackman on the data, So let's have a look at the Trackman data and see if there's a difference between the two heads. I felt they were both being very similar, but this is why Trackman's so good. So when we look at that initial data, we can see there's actually quite a big difference between the two heads, which has actually surprised me slightly. So we can see that the top there is the SIM MAX OS and the bottom one's the SIM MAX. So we've got a clubhead speed being very similar, 87.8, 87.5. The ball speed is higher on the MAX OS, very slightly. We've got a different spin rate, so the spin rate is lower on the MAX OS than it is on the MAX, and therefore the carry distance is different. So when we look at the launch angle, the launch angle of the MAX OS is a little bit lower, the spin rate's a bit lower, and therefore it's creating a little bit more distance. So the launch angle of the MAX is a little bit higher, the spin's a bit more, which is a bit more realistic in terms of what my figures would be, and therefore the carry is a bit less. So the golf clubs are doing two different things. So the MAX OS is definitely spinning a bit less, launching a bit lower, sending it out there a bit further, whereas the MAX is definitely doing a little bit less in terms of that distance, but it's still a powerful golf club. So actually that surprised me quite a lot in the difference between the two. So what's my final thoughts on these irons? I actually quite like them. I like what they're trying to do there. There's definitely a difference between the two, and the Trackman data shows us that, which did surprise me a little bit. In terms of ease of hit, yes, the OS is slightly easier, but only slightly. It's not drastically, which means that the MAX is actually a very easy golf club to hit. In terms of the looks, they're not astounding, but they look okay behind the golf ball. I think the thing I really like about these irons is the fact that they are targeted at the handicap golfer. So if you're looking for irons that are going to help you with forgiveness, or the technology behind them in terms of off-centre hits and creating that consistency in distance because of off-centre hits, these are definitely ones to look at without any shadow of doubt. As always, essential to try both and the separate heads between there, so you get an idea in terms of which one would suit your game, but also which one you prefer. Definitely always get fitted. You've got to make sure you get the right shaft in comparison with that. But overall, I did quite like them. I like what they're trying to do from a performance perspective, just maybe not quite as aesthetically pleasing as some old Taylormade irons. So if you're new to the channel, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, please hit that subscribe button. All your support means the world to us. It really helps us grow, helps us get more videos out there and the message out there that we want to do around impartial reviews. So if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Also hit the bell button so you get all the notification of all the new videos.